What if, as an adult, you are starting to have these absolutely fascinating awakenings that totally disprove everything that you've learned about yourself, about relationships as a child? What was it that you learned about yourself and relationships as a child? You learned dysfunctionality. You learned fucked upness. You learned toxicity. You were maybe raised by parents or whoever it was that raised you that displayed behaviors that were unhealthy consistently over and over and over again. So you learned that in childhood, and then because of that, you were unfortunately attracted to that. And so, therefore, you attracted that and you cultivated relationships that mirrored what was modeled for you. So, throughout all those years, there were consistent reinforcements of that. So, you learned this idea that that's just the way that relationships are. Relationships are fucked up. Relationships are toxic. Relationships are dysfunctional. You have to do a bunch of things that are unhealthy to be in and maintain relationships over and over again. But now, as an adult, you're going through many fascinating awakenings that are really putting all of that stuff into question. Because you learned that that's just the way that relationships are, and you've chased that because you learned that. It was reinforced to you over and over and over again. But now, as you grow, as you get older, as you evolve, you're starting to see the world in a different light. As you go out into the world, you're starting to learn more about self. You're starting to learn more about other. You're starting to learn more about relationship dynamics. You're starting to see people in relationships that are different from what it is that you learned. They seem calm. They seem collected. They seem peaceful. They seem different. And it's fascinating because many people that are emotionally unhealthy would consider these people to be rather boring because where's the chaos? Where's the drama? Where are all of the ingredients that somebody that is used to toxicity in relationships, where are all those ingredients? They're not present. The relationship looks different. It doesn't look like something that you are comfortable or familiar with. It's actually boring to you. You have been taught to seek the fucked upness that is all over the place of a unstable, unhealthy relationship. And so the fascinating thing is that now you're realizing, oh, wait a second. I did not have a healthy childhood. I was raised in survival. This is just an example, by the way. I'm putting this out there as structure for example. I'm saying that these awakenings that you're having are helping you to understand that you didn't have a healthy childhood, that you were raised in survival. And what does that mean? It means that you were raised by parents that lacked necessary emotional health, caretakers, if that were emotionally immature, that raised you in a dynamic, in a system of survival. What exactly is survival? What does it mean to be raised in a survival based childhood? Survival, the difference between being raised in a survival based childhood and being raised in a healthy childhood. No childhood is perfect, no parent is perfect. That's just the way that it is. But there is a difference between being raised in an environment of survival where you learn to wear masks, where you learn to abandon yourself, where you learn to appease and people please, and where you learn to put your parents that are emotionally immature, put their needs above your own. You didn't really get to have a childhood actually, because you didn't get to have the healthy boundaries of space to develop a healthy ego state. And so, with that, you just didn't get that. And there was quite, in fact, something missing from your childhood, which was that. And so you just carried those unhealthy dynamics into adulthood and attracted people that basically, in a fucked up way, complemented those fucked up traits of your ego state. Now, that's different from a healthy childhood. Again, no childhood is perfect, but that is different from a healthy childhood. What's the difference between being raised by caretakers, if not parents, by caretakers that are emotionally immature versus caretakers that are actually emotionally mature? Emotionally immature caretakers will have you being raised in survival with all of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You pretty much can't be yourself. You're not getting the healthy boundaries. You're not getting the individuation. You're not getting the differentiation. You're not even accepted as you are. You're expected to be somebody else. You are likely trained to take on responsibilities that you should not be taking on as a child. You should instead have the space to develop a healthy ego state as a child. But no, no child is going to get that under emotionally immature, emotionally unhealthy parents. They don't get the healthy boundaries. They are in survival. They're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Now, emotionally healthy parents, emotionally healthy caretakers, they do give their children all of that wonderful stuff that the children does need. The healthy boundaries, the individuation, the differentiation, the space to develop a healthy ego state where the person actually knows who they are. And they don't go out into the world looking for who they are, because who they are is in here, not out there. So, when you actually do give yourself what your childhood didn't, because if you were raised in a system, in a family system of survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, in childhood, and you did not get the healthy dynamics that your childhood did not give you, because you were not raised in a healthy childhood, because you were raised by parents or caretakers that were emotionally unhealthy, you can take this chance in adulthood to give that to yourself now. And it's absolutely fascinating, because the difference between both of these, as I just stated, is the difference in lifestyle, the difference in happiness, the difference in fulfillment. What you didn't get in your survival based childhood was the healthy boundaries. It was the individuation. It was the differentiation. It was the actual healthy development of an ego state that would help you realize, not just help you realize, it would have you understanding that you, whoever you are, wherever you are, say for instance, you're me, you are here and in here, and you're not out there. And you don't have to go out there to find yourself. You don't have to go out there to chase yourself. You don't have to go out there for the validation and approval and acceptance and love that you can give yourself. Because healthy boundaries of any individual help you understand that you are right here. Your worth is right here, and it is determined by self. Your love is right here, and it is determined by self. Your acceptance is right here, and it is determined by self. And that's the difference. And so you can now understand that throughout your entire life, you've given your power away to the outside for people to validate you, for people to approve you, for people to... You've had all of these strings attached to the external. I know that I've made at least, I don't know, like 3 or 5 videos on the subject of self-worth and the difference between extrinsic self-worth and intrinsic self-worth. Extrinsic self-worth is when you have your self-worth tied to so many things in the external. Intrinsic self-worth is when you determine your own self-worth. And the reality of the extrinsic self-worth is that it's based on structures that are unstable. So therefore, it's just fluctuating. Oh, I'm worthy. Oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I'm worthy. Oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I'm worthy. Oh, I'm not worthy. Depending on what it is that you've got going on in your life, who comes, who goes, whatever it is that happens, it's dependent on something out there, which is unstable and unpredictable and just not healthy. So now you're realizing that you can actually take your power back, this power that you've given away to the world because you were taught to, because you lacked healthy boundaries, because you were raised in survival. Survival did not give you healthy boundaries. It actually taught you that you were responsible for other people. It taught you to value extrinsic self-worth. It taught you to value other people's opinions of you. So you gave your power away. You gave it away to that person, and to that person, and to that person, and to that person. Validate me, validate me, validate. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just not healthy. It's very healthy to be able to determine yourself, to have intrinsic self-worth, to validate and approve of and love yourself first. It's very, 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 very powerful. Transformative, actually. So the fascinating thing is, underneath all of the survival-based layers, who are you, really? Because if you were raised in this environment of survival where you were basically stripped of yourself, not only did you not get the healthy boundaries necessary to develop a healthy ego state, you were also stripped of yourself. You were taught to wear all these masks to appease, to people please. You were taught to be somebody other than who you were because you were raised by people that lacked healthy boundaries. People that lack healthy boundaries often do not accept you for who you are. They expect you to be somebody else. They're probably much more on the traditional side of things. They're accustomed to older ways of doing things that are exceedingly boundary violating. They try to manipulate you by getting you to believe that you need to get in line and you need to be a certain way for the family system and you need to be this, that, and the other way because grandfather, grandmother did it before them, before them, before them. They're interested in that. They're not interested in you. They're interested in maintaining the streak. They're not interested in questioning it. And so you got the further fucked upness of that because, again, they lacked healthy boundaries. So underneath all of those layers, because that is a fuck ton of layers to be dealing with, you're suffocated by that shit. Underneath all of those layers, who are you really? And not only who are you really, what do you actually want? Forget about what it is that you've been taught you should want. Oh, well, for eons, the family system has been doing this. Your grandfather, your grandmother, their parents, their parents, their parents, so on and so forth. They all did this. They all did it this way. Why should you be any different? They'll try to get the system to remain the same. It's a boundary violation to you and your individuality. Remember, healthy childhoods had healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation. Unhealthy, survival-based childhoods that consisted of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and all of those defense mechanisms, they taught you to be somebody else. They taught you to be this half-baked, fucking charred, fucked up, chopped up version of you. And now you're in adulthood and you're looking at the whole scenario and you're like, healthy relationships actually aren't that boring. They're pretty marvelous. They're boundaried. They're wonderful. Not only healthy relationships like out there, but also like in here. Like healthy relationship with the self is really about getting to know the self, which is where the healthy boundaries, the individuation, differentiation come from. Imagine you come from an unhealthy family system, but then in adulthood, you give yourself the healthy boundaries, the individuation, the differentiation. You actually give yourself the space to like undo and then redevelop. I mean, it's not really about undoing. Like, it's more so about accepting. Yeah, accept the fact that you were raised in a fucked up way. Accept it. It's just what it is. Now, you can change all of that. You can't change the past, but you can change your future by this moment now of recognizing, well, wait a second, everything that I was taught about relationships was a fucking lie. Because there are such things as healthy individuals out there, emotionally healthy, which basically determines a lot of this. Oh, I can become one. Wow. with that, I can attract a relationship that is exceedingly different from everything that I previously experienced. And everything that I was taught to believe is just normal and the way that it's supposed to be. No, that's not normal or the way that it's supposed to be. That's the way that unhealthy individuals and unhealthy relationships are supposed to be. Yeah, that totally fits that criteria. But the reality of the matter is that there are not just unhealthy individuals and unhealthy relationships out there. And even if you were raised in a survival based family system with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, wearing a bunch of masks, people pleasing, appeasing, taking on responsibilities that were not yours, lacking the healthy boundaries necessary to develop a healthy ego state, you can give it to yourself now. You can give yourself now what your survival based unhealthy childhood didn't. You can choose differently for yourself. You can choose to explore qualities of you that you might not even be aware of. Because let me make this very clear. When you're raised in an environment of survival, this is the wild thing too. Very early on, things are basically life or death for us. We are in all or nothing dynamics. If we got survival based childhoods, life was very painful for us. So we developed skin over top of our skin to cope. Learning to take that off and learning to realize that it was just armor, that it was just a shield, can be very challenging for a lot of people, understandably. But understanding that, like, you can actually undress and look at yourself is just fucking out of this world. You don't have to continue living in an emotionally unhealthy way and attracting emotionally unhealthy people. You can do the work to heal and transform your life moving forward. Yeah, you may have been dealt cards that were fucked up, but at least now you're aware of it and you can, I wouldn't say set them on fire, because your childhood is your childhood. You can accept your shit, but you can also choose differently today and moving forward. It's entirely up to you. And one of the most important things is understanding, no matter how much people have probably fucking manipulated you through gaslighting or whatever fucked up tactics, you have free fucking human agency. You can say yes to whatever the fuck you want to. You can say no to whatever the fuck you want to. You don't owe anybody shit. You can change your mind whenever the fuck you want to. You deserve to do the best that you can for yourself, regardless of what anybody else has to say about it. So even if you did have a survival-based childhood, you can develop into a emotionally healthier individual, and with that, change your fucking life.